The knock came at 7:43 a.m. on a Saturday. I remember checking my phone, annoyed someone was interrupting my coffee. Mr. Raymond stood at my door, his weathered brown hands gripping his cane, those cloudy eyes looking desperate behind thick glasses. "Gerald, son, I hate to bother you this early," he said, voice trembling. "But I need to borrow your ladder. Just for an hour, maybe 2. I'd lived next to Raymond for 3 years in our Southside Chicago neighborhood. 78 years old, retired postal worker, wife died 5 years back. He kept to himself mostly, waved from his porch, brought me cookies every Christmas. Seemed harmless. "Sure, Mr. Raymond. Everything okay?" "Gutters clogged. Storm last night made a mess." He shifted his weight, wincing. "My grandson was supposed to help, but you know how young folks are." I did know. I was 29, working construction, knew about flaky family members. My own brother hadn't returned my calls in 6 months. "Let me grab it. I can help if you need." No. My grandson Darius is coming. Just running late." Raymond smiled, but something felt off. His fingers drummed against the cane handle, and he wouldn't quite meet my eyes. I hauled my 12-foot extension ladder from the garage. "Want me to walk it over?" "That'd be wonderful, Gerald. Thank you." We crossed his driveway. His house looked the same as always, white paint peeling slightly, rose bushes his late wife Laurie had planted still somehow surviving. Nothing seemed wrong. Then Raymond opened his backyard gate. What I saw made my blood run cold. The backyard was a construction zone, but not the kind you'd expect. A massive pit, maybe 15 feet deep and 20 feet across, dominated the center of his lawn. Piles of dirt surrounded it like ancient burial mounds. But that wasn't what made me freeze. Inside the pit were people. 3 of them, dirty and exhausted, shoveling. "Mr. Raymond, what the hell?" "Just set the ladder against the house, Gerald." His voice had changed completely. Cold. Flat. The tremor gone. I recognized one of the people in the pit. Darius. Raymond's grandson. 22 years old, usually driving around in a nice Honda Civic. Now he was filthy, his shirt soaked through with sweat, hands blistered and bleeding. Next to him, a young woman I'd never seen, maybe 25, dark skin covered in dirt, eyes hollow with exhaustion. And an older man, 40-something, whose face showed pure defeat. "Grandpa, please," Darius called out weakly. "We've been digging for 36 hours straight. Myra's about to pass out." Raymond tapped his cane on the ground 3 times. "You'll dig until you hit what I buried. All of you." My mind raced. "I'm calling the police." "You do that, Gerald, and I'll tell them about your side business." Raymond turned to me, eyes suddenly sharp and clear, no cloudiness at all. "I know about the copper wire you've been stripping from those condemned buildings downtown. Been watching you for months." My stomach dropped. That was $15,000 I'd made, money I desperately needed after my mother's medical bills destroyed my savings. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, but my voice betrayed me. Raymond smiled. "June 14th. The old Packard plant. You left at 11:47 p.m. with 2 duffel bags. July 3rd. The warehouse on Michigan Avenue. Should I continue?" He'd been surveilling me. This harmless old man had been building a file. "Why?" I managed. "Because people underestimate me, Gerald. They see an old black man with a cane and think I'm helpless. Invisible." He gestured to the pit. "These 3 learned that lesson. Now you will too." Darius pulled himself up slightly. "Gerald, don't listen to him. He's insane. He thinks Mom stole his money before she died, and is making me dig up the backyard looking for some buried cash that doesn't exist." "Your mother was a thief." Raymond roared, the cane slamming down. "Laurie told me before she passed. Your mama took $200,000 I'd saved. My entire retirement. Said she'd pay me back, then ran off to Atlanta and got herself killed in a car crash. Mom never stole anything." Darius shouted back. The young woman, Myra, looked at me with desperate eyes. Please. He's been holding us here since Thursday night. He drugged Darius's drink when he came to visit, then made him call me and Cameron here. She nodded to the older man. He said if we don't find his money, he'll bury us in this pit. Raymond laughed. Dramatic, but accurate. Except I won't have to bury them. Exhaustion will do the work. Gerald, you seem confused. Let me educate you. Raymond pulled out a rusted garden chair and sat, casual as if we were discussing weather. My wife Laurie and I saved every penny for 43 years. $200,000. We were going to buy a place in Florida, live our final years in peace. He stared into the pit with hatred I'd never seen in anyone's eyes. Then my daughter Carmen, Darius's mother, came begging. Said she needed money for her business. Some boutique nonsense. Laurie gave it to her, against my wishes. Every single dollar. Grandpa, she was going to pay you back. Darius protested. She drove her Mercedes off a bridge before returning 1 cent. And you, Raymond pointed the cane like a weapon, you inherited everything she owned. Her house, her cars, her accounts. But my money? Gone. So I did research. Cameron, the older man, finally spoke. His voice was hoarse. He traced Carmen's transactions. Found she'd bought gold bars as an investment. Thought she'd buried them somewhere for safekeeping. In my own backyard, Raymond finished. She had keys to my house. Came here all the time. Laurie was already sick, barely noticed. Carmen buried my money right under my nose, planning to dig it up later. That's crazy. I said. Why wouldn't she just keep it in a safe deposit box? Because Carmen was paranoid about the IRS, Raymond said calmly. She had tax problems. Thought they'd seize her assets. So she buried gold bars worth $200,000 somewhere in this yard. You're holding people hostage over a theory. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Not a theory. Fact. Raymond pulled out his phone, showed me text messages. Screenshots of conversations between Carmen and someone named Lisa. My hands shook as I read them. Carmen, buried the gold at Dad's. Under the roses? No, too obvious. Lisa, girl, you're insane. What if someone finds it? Carmen, nobody suspects an old man's backyard. I'll dig it up next spring. The messages were dated 3 years ago. 2 months before Carmen died. Could be fabricated, I said weakly. Could be. But Darius knows the truth, don't you, boy? Raymond's smile was cruel. Darius wouldn't look at anyone. That told me everything. She told you. I asked him. Tears streamed down his dirt-covered face. The night before she died. She was drunk, said she'd hidden something valuable at Grandpa's house. Made me promise not to tell anyone until she came back from her trip. Then she never came back. And you never thought to mention this to your grandfather. Raymond's voice dripped venom. I didn't think it was real. Mom said crazy stuff when she drank. I thought she was joking. Myra interrupted, her voice desperate. Even if it's true, making us dig like slaves is insane. Call the police. Let them excavate properly. And split my money with the government? Never. Raymond stood up. Gerald, here are your options. Help them dig, and when we find the gold, I'll give you $20,000. Enough to cover your little copper wire enterprise if you get caught. $20,000. That would solve so many problems. Pay off Mom's remaining bills. Fix my truck. Maybe even get ahead for once instead of constantly drowning. And if I refuse? I asked. I've got video of you at the Packard plant. I'll send it to the police. You'll lose your contractor's license, probably do time. How's your mother going to manage her dialysis when you're in Cook County Jail? He knew about Mom's dialysis. This man had studied my entire life. Don't do it, Gerald. Myra pleaded. He's going to kill us anyway. We've found nothing. There's no gold. Shut up. Raymond banged his cane. You've barely scratched the surface. The yard is 40 feet deep to the property line. You've only gone 15 feet in one spot. Cameron climbed shakily to his feet. I'm a structural engineer. This pit is dangerous. The walls could collapse any second. We need support beams, proper equipment. You need motivation. Raymond pulled out his phone again. Cameron, should I send these photos to your wife? The ones from last November at the Marriott on State Street? With your assistant Veronica. Cameron's face went white. You're blackmailing all of us. I'm ensuring cooperation. Raymond's smile was skeletal. Myra here has warrants in Indiana. Nothing major, missed court dates for unpaid tickets. But enough to get her arrested if I make one call. Myra sank to her knees in the dirt, sobbing. I wanted to run. Call the police from my house, let them sort this out. But Raymond had me trapped perfectly. He'd planned this for months, maybe years. How long? I asked quietly. How long what? How long have you been planning this? Raymond's eyes gleamed. Since the day Carmen died. 3 years, 2 months, 17 days. I climbed down into the pit. The ladder Raymond had supposedly needed stood unused against his house. He'd never intended to use it. He'd just needed me to see, needed another person trapped in his web. Darius handed me a shovel. Up close, I could see the damage. His hands weren't just blistered, they were infected, red streaks running up his forearms. Myra's face was sunburned so badly her lips were cracked and bleeding. Cameron moved like every muscle screamed in agony. There's no gold, Darius whispered as we dug. My mom was broke when she died. Car was repossessed. House was in foreclosure. If she had $200,000 in gold, she would have used it. Then why did you admit she told you about hiding something? His eyes filled with tears again. Because she did hide something here. But it wasn't gold. Before I could ask what he meant, Raymond's voice cut through the morning air. Less talking. More digging. Darius, you're in the northeast corner. Gerald, take the southeast. Myra and Cameron, keep working the center. We dug. The sun rose higher, temperature climbing into the 90s. Raymond sat in his chair, drinking lemonade, watching us like an overseer on a plantation. The parallel wasn't lost on any of us. My ancestors picked cotton, Cameron said quietly, his dark skin glistening with sweat. Thought those days were behind us. Guess evil doesn't die, it just evolves. Hit subscribe if you believe everyone should be treated fairly, Raymond suddenly called out mockingly. Only haters, manipulators, and trolls won't subscribe. He laughed at his own joke. That's what you young folks say on the internet, right? He was insane. Completely, utterly insane. 4 hours in, Myra collapsed. She just crumpled, shovel clattering against the dirt. Get up, Raymond commanded. She didn't move. I said get up. Cameron climbed over to her, checked her pulse. She needs water. She's dehydrated. You're going to kill her. Then dig faster and find my money. There is no money. I shouted. Look at this rationally. If Carmen buried gold here, don't you think someone would have found it by now? Metal detector hobbyists. Utility workers? This is insane. Raymond stood up, fury contorting his wrinkled face. My wife died because of the stress. We were supposed to retire to Clearwater Beach. We had pictures on the refrigerator. Brochures. We'd already picked out the condo. So you're punishing your grandson? I challenged. Your own blood. His mother stole my life. He inherits the debt. Darius threw his shovel down. Fine. You want to know what Mom really buried? I'll tell you. Raymond went still. What? Documents. That's what she buried. Legal papers proving that you embezzled money from the Postal Service. She found out you'd been stealing for years, and she threatened to expose you unless you gave her money to keep quiet. The backyard went silent. Even the birds seemed to stop chirping. Raymond's hand trembled on his cane. "You're lying." "I'm not. She showed me before she buried them. Said they were her insurance policy. You gave her that money, Grandpa. She didn't steal it. You gave it to her to keep your secret." "No." Raymond's voice cracked. "No, that's not, Laurie would've. Grandma never knew. Mom made sure of that." Raymond staggered backward, hitting his chair. The cane clattered to the ground. "She blackmailed me," he whispered. "My own daughter blackmailed me." Cameron pulled himself out of the pit, helping Myra up. "So there never was any gold. You've been torturing us over nothing." "Not nothing." Darius climbed out too, exhausted but somehow energized by finally telling the truth. Mom buried evidence of Grandpa's crimes. He's been desperate to find it before anyone else does. I pieced it together. That's why you couldn't call police. They'd excavate and find the documents. "I worked 30 years for the Postal Service," Raymond said, his voice hollow. "Started taking money during the economic crash in 2008. Just a little at first. I was going to pay it back. But then Laurie got sick, medical bills piled up, and I couldn't stop." "How much?" I asked. "Over 10 years. Nearly 300,000. We all stared at him. This wasn't about stolen retirement money. This was about covering up decades of federal crimes. Mom figured it out when she was looking through your files, trying to help Grandma with the medical paperwork," Darius continued. "She found discrepancies, traced them back. Instead of turning you in, she demanded money." "She was going to destroy me," Raymond said. "Ruin everything. I gave her the money, and she promised the documents would stay buried. Then she died, and I realized that someone might find them," Cameron finished. "So you lured us here, forced us to dig, all to find evidence of your own crimes." Myra finally found her voice. "You're more than insane. You're evil." Raymond looked at all of us, and for a moment, I saw the mask slip completely. Not a confused old man. Not a grieving widow. A desperate criminal who'd lost control of his own scheme. "You can't tell anyone," Raymond said, reaching into his jacket. For one heart-stopping moment, I thought he was going for a gun. Instead, he pulled out more papers. "I have insurance too. All of you. Gerald's copper wire theft. Cameron's affair. Myra's warrants. Darius's DUI from last year that he paid to keep off his record." That was expunged. Darius protested. "Nothing's ever truly erased. I have the police report. Paid a court clerk $500 for a copy." Raymond shuffled through his papers like a gambler revealing cards. "You all have secrets. We all do. So here's what's going to happen." "No." The shout came from Cameron. "I'm done. I don't care about Veronica. I don't care if my marriage ends. I'm not digging another inch for you, old man." He started toward the gate. Raymond moved faster than I'd seen him move before, blocking the path with surprising strength. "You leave, I make the calls." "Then make them." Cameron's voice echoed off the houses. "I'd rather face my wife than keep enabling your psychotic treasure hunt. You're a thief and a kidnapper. You think I'm afraid of you." Something shifted in Raymond's expression. Fear. He'd controlled everything through information and blackmail, but when someone called his bluff. "Fine." Raymond lowered his cane. "Go. But Gerald stays." "What?" I stepped forward. "Why me?" "Because you're the only one who might actually understand." Raymond's eyes locked on mine. "You stole to help your mother. You broke the law for someone you loved. That's what I did. That's all any of us do, try to survive in a system that's rigged against us." He was trying to create kinship between us. Make me see him as something other than a monster. "I stole copper wire," I said carefully. You enslaved people in your backyard. Enslaved. Raymond laughed bitterly. You kids throw that word around. You don't know real slavery. My grandfather picked actual cotton in Mississippi. Was beaten for looking at white folks wrong. You think making my criminal grandson dig is the same? Yes, I said firmly. Because cruelty is cruelty, regardless of who our ancestors were. You don't get a pass on being evil because your family suffered. Something in Raymond broke. Maybe it was hearing the truth plainly. Maybe it was exhaustion from maintaining his scheme. His shoulders sagged, and suddenly he looked every bit of his 78 years. I just wanted my life back, he whispered. Laurie and I had plans. Dreams. Carmen took all of it. Carmen is dead, Darius said, his voice surprisingly gentle. You can't punish a ghost, Grandpa. You can only punish the living. The documents, Raymond said after a long pause. Where did she actually bury them? Darius walked to the corner of the yard, to the rose bushes Laurie had planted. He knelt down, pushed aside the mulch, and pulled out a waterproof container that had been hidden just inches underground. Right where Mom said in the text. Under the roses. Too obvious, so you assume she'd hidden them somewhere more elaborate. Raymond's face crumbled as Darius opened the container. Inside were manila folders, USB drives, photographs, years of evidence meticulously documented. She showed me the night before she died, Darius continued. Made me promise that if anything happened to her, I'd know where to find proof of what you'd done. But she also made me promise not to turn you in unless I had no choice. Why? Raymond asked hoarsely. Because despite everything, you were still her father. She still loved you. The morning sun beat down on us, making the whole scene feel surreal. An old man confronting his crimes. A grandson protecting family despite being tortured. Strangers trapped in a nightmare not of their making. What now? Myra asked. We all just walk away. Pretend this never happened. I'm calling the police, Cameron said, pulling out his phone. This is kidnapping. False imprisonment. I don't care what he has on me. Wait. I surprised myself by speaking. Everyone turned to look at me. Gerald, don't, Darius warned. Whatever you're thinking. Mr. Raymond, I said carefully. You can't undo what you did to the Postal Service. You can't bring back Laurie or Carmen. But you can do the right thing now. Raymond stared at the documents in Darius's hands. You want me to turn myself in. I want you to think about what slavery actually means. What you did to your own grandson and these people. You kept them in a pit, forced them to dig, threatened them with blackmail. You became exactly what your grandfather fought against. The words hit him like physical blows. Raymond stumbled to his chair, sitting heavily. My grandfather would be ashamed, he admitted quietly. Then honor his memory, I pressed. Do what he never got the chance to do, make a choice. For several long minutes, nobody spoke. Raymond stared at his hands, at the cane he'd used as a weapon, at the pit that had become his monument to bitterness. Finally, he stood. The money I embezzled paid for Laurie's treatments. Extended her life by 2 years. I don't regret that part. But this, he gestured to the yard, this was evil. You're right. He walked to his back door, opened it, and retrieved his phone from inside. We all watched, tense, unsure what he'd do. Raymond dialed 911. My name is Raymond Holloway. I'm at 2847, South Princeton Avenue. I need to report multiple crimes. Mine. 3 weeks later, I stood in my backyard, watching movers load furniture into a truck across the fence. Raymond had been arrested, charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, embezzlement, and a dozen other counts. His house was being sold to cover legal fees and restitution. Darius walked over, his hands finally healed, bandages removed. Thanks for what you did. I didn't do much. You made him see himself. That's everything. He paused. Found out the Postal Service is working out a deal. If Grandpa helps them recover what he can and testifies about security flaws he exploited, they'll recommend a reduced sentence. He'll still do time, but maybe not die in prison. And you? How are you handling all this? Darius shrugged. Mom was complicated. Grandpa was complicated. I'm learning that families are messy, and sometimes the people you love do terrible things. I'm in therapy. Myra and Cameron too. Good. You all need it. Gerald, the copper wire. Already stopped, I cut him off. Turned myself in, actually. Working out a restitution plan. Turns out when an old man can make you see your own reflection that clearly, you can't ignore it. Darius smiled. We're all trying to be better than we were. That's all we can do. After he left, I thought about everything. About how poverty and desperation make people into criminals. How trauma creates more trauma. How families can be our greatest blessing and our deepest curse. But I also thought about choices. Raymond chose to embezzle. Carmen chose to blackmail. I chose to steal. And in the end, we all chose something different, accountability. My phone buzzed. Mom, checking in from her dialysis appointment. I texted back that I loved her, that everything was going to be okay. For the first time in months, I believed it. If you can't stand people like Raymond who use their pain to justify hurting others, comment everyone deserves respect. Only toxic people who think manipulation is acceptable won't comment. Hit subscribe if you believe accountability matters more than excuses. Trolls who think blackmail and cruelty are okay won't. And if this story made you think about the choices you make when desperate, hit that like button. Because we all face moments where we could become Raymond or become better. Which will you choose?